Greetings to my dear guests on this video. I wish you a pleasant viewing and look forward to your feedback in the comments. I've always been damn good at what I do. Marketing isn't just a job for me, it's instinct. A sixth sense for what people want before they even know it themselves. I could build a campaign from scratch in less than a week and watch it catch fire by Friday. That's what got me hired at Heston & Moore in the first place. A big-name agency, sleek offices, skyline views, the kind of place where people wore ambition like cologne. I remember the day I got the offer. My inbox pinged while I was microwaving leftover Thai food in my tiny studio. The subject line, "Let's build something great." I stared at it for a full minute, chopsticks frozen in midair. The interview had been rough, 4 rounds, 2 hypothetical crisis simulations, and a final pitch that left me hoarse. But apparently, I'd nailed it. The salary was more than I'd dared hope for. The title? Senior Digital Strategist. My mother cried when I told her. I didn't. I was too stunned. At first, it was everything I wanted. The CEO, Richard Halford, seemed sharp and attentive. He remembered details, asked questions, even thanked me personally after my first campaign went viral. It was a product launch for a travel startup, and thanks to my segmentation strategy and some targeted humor, we tripled their user base in 6 weeks. Clients started requesting me by name. I was riding high. But the thing about Richard, his memory only worked when you were new, or when he needed something. Over time, his compliments faded, replaced by half smirks and offhand comments. "Miranda, your Gen Z lingo is really something," he said once in a meeting, chuckling. "I guess TikTok isn't just for teenagers doing dances." I smiled politely. "Actually, 68% of users are over 25. We're leveraging that for the next B2C launch." He nodded, still amused, like I was a novelty. Like I should have come with a manual titled Marketing Millennial, How to Make ROI Trendy. And that was just the beginning. Soon, Richard stopped reading my reports altogether. He'd skim the dashboards, then call Ben. Yes, Ben, our tech bro innovation consultant, to validate the numbers. Ben once asked if impressions were the same as conversions. I wish I were joking. At team lunches, Richard would toss out comments like, "We're doing great with engagement, probably because everyone's thirsty for memes these days, huh, Miranda?" Everyone would laugh. I'd laugh too, but something inside me began to twist. It wasn't just about jokes. It was about how no one took me seriously anymore. They didn't see the hours I put in, the A/B tests that ran overnight, the influencers I negotiated with at 2 a.m. They didn't understand that our social campaigns weren't lucky guesses. They were crafted like symphonies, every note deliberate. And yet, when the Q3 report came in, highlighting that over 70% of the company's inbound leads came through digital channels, I wasn't even mentioned in the debrief. "Great work, team," Richard said, raising his glass at the quarterly wrap-up. And of course, huge thanks to my niece Ashley for really upping our online presence. She's got that fresh, post-grad energy we all need more of. Ashley, who'd been hired a month ago as a marketing intern and spent most of her day posting pastel infographics on Instagram. Ashley, who once asked me if we could make the website sparkle more. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. At that point, I realized something. Richard didn't value performance. He valued proximity, family, familiarity, youth, in that sanitized, polished, inoffensive way that looked good in company photo ops. He started assigning Ashley to my campaigns for the experience. My creative briefs were suddenly edited without warning. Clients I had secured were being rerouted to her. And when I brought it up, calmly, professionally, he laughed. "Oh, come on, Miranda," he said, grinning. "You're not threatened by an intern, are you? She's just here to learn. You're the pro, remember?" But that word, pro, had started to sound more like expired. I didn't say anything. Not then. I just smiled, stood up, and walked back to my desk. They didn't know it yet, but every campaign that put Heston & Moore on the map, every metric they bragged about in boardrooms, every client they swore came through referrals, that was me. And what they really didn't know? I owned every single one of those campaigns, contractually, creatively, and in one very specific case. Legally. But I wasn't going to tell them that. Not yet. Let them keep laughing. Let them post boomerangs of office bagels and call it strategy. Because the moment I walked out of that building, I walked into something bigger. And they'd never see it coming. I used to think that if you did good work, real work, honest work, it would speak for itself. I still believe that, in part. But what I've learned is that sometimes the loudest voices in the room aren't the ones saying anything worthwhile. They're just echoing what they think sounds good. Me? I never needed to echo anyone. I had clients calling me on weekends to brainstorm campaign pivots. One emailed me from a honeymoon in Bali just to say, "Miranda, that launch post?" My CEO cried. We sold out in 3 hours. I had another client send me a handwritten thank you note, like it was 1997 again, because their quarterly revenue spiked 240%, and they credited the girl in the leather jacket with the weird metaphors. That girl was me. I knew my strategies worked. I had the metrics, the testimonials, the actual ROI to prove it, while other people threw buzzwords around like glitter, disruption, synergy, 360-degree targeting. I was in the trenches, writing copy at midnight, re-editing influencer footage, studying competitor ads pixel by pixel. And the clients saw that. They weren't stupid, they knew who was delivering, which is exactly why I didn't panic when Richard started giving Ashley more visibility. Because visibility isn't the same as vision. Ashley strutted around the office in blazer dress hybrids and platforms that clacked like applause. She'd perch herself on the edge of desks, toss out phrases she'd heard on a podcast, and nod like she understood them. "Brand cohesion is everything," she told a skincare client once, then turned to me and whispered, "Is that the one with the green bottles or the pink ones?" It was the same client she'd just pitched a mood board to. She didn't know the product. She didn't know the audience. Hell, she didn't know the difference between a KPI and a call to action. But she knew how to perform in front of Richard. Every time he walked by, Ashley suddenly had a tablet in hand, frowning at data she didn't understand, nodding slowly like it was life-changing. Once, I saw her open Canva, pretend to drag a shape across the screen, and then minimize it the moment he was out of sight. Another time, she asked me to explain the back end of our ad scheduling platform, loudly in the break room, so Richard could overhear my answer and assume she was learning the ropes. He called her a go-getter. I called her a performance artist. And while she was staging scenes, I was swamped. My inbox had turned into a triage center. Product launches, Q4 pivots, crisis PR for a client who'd accidentally tweeted a slur during a live stream. It was all mine. Because when something actually mattered, they came to me. "Miranda, you've got that fashion brand launch this week, right?" Kate from accounts asked as she passed my desk. "Their CEO is nervous. You good?" I nodded. "We're going to triple their site traffic in 48 hours. She smiled like she believed me. Because she did. Because that's what I did. By the time Richard wandered past my office to ask if I'd seen Ashley's brilliant rebrand idea for a car rental company that wasn't even in our portfolio yet, I just smiled and said, "Can't wait to see it." Because I knew he wouldn't. It didn't exist. Ashley lived in a world of presentations and pretty slides. I lived in deliverables. But still, the digs kept coming, subtle at first. "We need more of that Ashley energy, you know," Richard said in a team huddle. "Less grind, more sparkle." Sparkle. Like we were selling fairy dust instead of growth strategy. At one point, I started wondering if I was the only one noticing the ridiculousness of it all. But then a client accidentally CC'd me on an internal thread where they described Ashley's pitch as cosmetic fluff and asked if I was still leading the campaign, or if it's just nepotism theater now. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because here's what Richard forgot. It's easy to replace the face of a campaign. It's much harder to replace the mind that built it. And the longer Ashley played pretend, the more obvious it became to everyone else who was actually steering the ship. But Richard, he was still too dazzled by sparkle. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while he praised Ashley's holographic mood boards, I had quietly secured the intellectual rights to all of our top-performing campaign frameworks. Every slogan, every funnel, every asset that made our numbers jump. And when the time came, I wouldn't just leave the company. I'd take its heartbeat with me. It was raining that morning. Not the dramatic, movie kind of rain. Just a tired, gray drizzle that matched the heaviness in my chest. Still, I pushed through the revolving door of Heston and Moore, clutching my coffee like armor. Nothing had exploded yet. No red flags. Just that buzz in the air. The kind that doesn't make noise but hums beneath your skin. When I reached my desk, the notification was waiting for me. Mandatory all staff, 9:00 a.m. Conference room B. No subject, no context, just Richard's name on the invite. That was unusual. Richard didn't do surprise meetings. He barely did planned ones. People were already murmuring by the time I got there. The entire marketing team, even the quiet ones from data analytics and the new interns, were filing in with their laptops half closed and eyes darting toward each other. Ashley was already seated at the front, legs crossed, iPad in her lap, glossy hair draped over one shoulder like it had been styled by intention. She smiled at me when I walked in, but not the friendly kind, the kind you give when you've already been let in on the punchline. I didn't sit. I leaned against the wall near the door. I've always preferred exits that way. Richard walked in a minute later, clapping his hands once. Okay, let's dive in. No, good morning. No eye contact with me. His tone was chipper, rehearsed. Like this was all just a quarterly pep talk. I want to thank everyone for being here, he began, pacing slowly in front of the long table. We've had some great results this year. Big wins, big growth, and it's all thanks to evolution. He let that word hang. I felt it. A shift in the room, a tightening. He continued, but we have to be honest with ourselves. The world is changing, our audience is changing, and so our strategy needs to reflect that. I tilted my head slightly. Where was this going? Richard stopped pacing, planted himself right in the center of the room. We no longer need marketers. The words hit like a gut punch, not just to me. I saw heads whip up. Someone actually dropped a pen. We've realized, he said, oblivious to the stunned silence, that social media has outpaced traditional marketing. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram, those are what's really driving conversions, viral engagement, organic buzz, not spreadsheets and campaign plans. He smiled. So smug. From today forward, we're pivoting to a leaner, fresher digital model. More reactive, more agile. And I'm excited to announce that Ashley, he gestured grandly, will be taking lead on our social strategy going forward. There was a pause. Not applause. Just that awkward, slow silence that happens when no one knows whether they're supposed to cheer or vomit. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Ashley beamed. Her perfectly highlighted hair gleamed under the conference lights. She looked like a catalog ad for youthful confidence. Richard turned to me then, just briefly. His smile softened, like he was doing me a favor. Miranda, your work has been foundational, really. But it's time we try something different. That was it. No thank you. No severance talk. Not even a handshake. Just gone. I should have been furious. I should have said something, thrown a chair, demanded to see HR. But instead, I stood straighter, calmer. Because I knew something Richard didn't. I already had a plan. While he'd been busy playing kingmaker with his niece, I'd been quietly securing ownership of every high-performing campaign I built. I'd registered the rights. I'd protected the assets. I'd even coded watermarks into our top-performing content, a trick I learned from a freelancer I once rescued from a client's plagiarism mess. And now, every sparkle Ashley tried to mimic would lead back to me. So I left. No tears, no dramatic scene, just one last glance at the office I built from the inside out. They thought I was just another relic of an old marketing model, but I wasn't the past. I was the blueprint. And Richard? He was about to learn what happens when you fire the architect and give the house keys to someone who doesn't know how to use a hammer. The thing about betrayal? It rarely slaps you across the face. More often, it walks in smiling, drops your name off the org chart, and asks you to grab a coffee while we restructure. That Monday morning, Richard did it with a speech. A tone-deaf, jargon-filled performance about leaning into modern engagement strategies and focusing on dynamic social conversion over traditional frameworks. Translation? We don't need marketers anymore. I stood there in the center of the glass conference room, arms folded, letting his words hang in the air like smoke from a cheap cigar. The room was dead silent, and then he hit the final note. We're shifting direction. Ashley will be taking point as our digital media lead. She's proven she understands the modern landscape. Her proposal last week? Fresh, bold, exactly what we need. Ashley beamed. Literally beamed. She didn't even glance in my direction, just smoothed her blazer and nodded like the crown had been passed with divine authority. I should have walked out right then. But I didn't, because I had work to do. Not for them, of course. For myself. My desk, still warm from this morning's coffee, was cluttered with folders, cables, 3 flash drives, and a drawer full of notes scribbled on napkins, receipts, and color-coded sticky tabs. I opened it slowly, one hand resting on the side like it was a vault. And in a way, it was. Ashley, meanwhile, was still floating through the office like she'd just been nominated for an Emmy. Uncle Richard said I'm a natural, she gushed to one of the interns, who looked half terrified, half confused. Like the way I framed TikTok as a lead gen tool, he said that was genius. She laughed. Honestly, I just told him, people don't want ads anymore. They want vibes. We just need to be the vibe. Be the vibe. God help them. She was pacing near my desk now, phone in one hand, sipping her iced oat latte, like she'd earned every syllable of the praise she was soaking in. I even told him Miranda's plans were good, but maybe too technical, you know? She said, loud enough for everyone to hear. People scroll. They don't read reports. I didn't flinch, because Ashley didn't know the truth. She didn't know that the reports she dismissed as technical were actually the backbone of their entire acquisition funnel. That the spreadsheets she skimmed over housed the budget-balancing formulas that kept them from hemorrhaging ad spend every month. That those boring A/B test matrices were the reason 2 of our clients hadn't dropped us after last quarter. She thought she'd inherited a finished cake. She had no idea I was taking the oven with me. As I packed, I moved methodically. External drives went into the laptop sleeve. My private logins were wiped. The campaign roadmaps, the internal playbooks, the projection models, all of it were mine. Licensed under my name. A precaution I'd taken when I realized, months ago, that Richard liked to blur ownership the moment a campaign made headlines. Ashley hovered nearby. Oh, and Miranda, she said, tossing her hair like a punctuation mark. Don't worry about sending me the skincare ad files. I think I can, revamp the tone anyway. I'm going for something more raw, relatable. You know? I zipped my bag without looking up. Sure, I said. She blinked. You'll email them to me? I finally looked at her, smiled faintly. I won't need to. That seemed to confuse her for a second. But only for a second. Then she went back to filming a boomerang of her coffee with the caption, CEO in the making. Around me, a few heads turned. Some watched in silence. Others typed like nothing had happened. But I caught the flicker in their eyes. Pity, maybe. Or maybe they were just realizing what had truly happened. Ashley got the title, but not the tools, not the foundation, not the playbook that made this department run like a machine. Because all of that was walking out with me. I took one last glance at the room as I stepped into the elevator. The agency I helped shape, the campaigns that built their client base, the results that gave them bragging rights in every pitch deck. Ashley was laughing with someone from sales. Richard's office door was closed. The air felt thinner now, like something vital had been pulled out of the room and no one had realized it yet. But they would. They'd realize it soon. The pitches would start falling flat. The impressions would drop. Click-throughs would stutter. No one would know why. They'd blame algorithms, budgets, market fatigue. But the truth was that I didn't just take my things when I left. I took the fire. At first, no one at Heston & Moore noticed. Why would they? They were too busy celebrating a facade. Ashley was thriving, in selfies at least. The kind of thriving that looked good on Instagram, but cracked the second you asked for campaign performance metrics. She floated from one department to another, balancing iced lattes and manufactured confidence. In every team meeting, she repeated the same 3 phrases. Let's stay flexible, make it viral, and trust the process. What process? The one she never understood, never built, never touched, until Richard handed it to her like a glittery handbag. Meanwhile, I was settling into a different rhythm. A sharper one, quieter. Mercer Puislane's offices weren't flashy, but they buzzed with purpose. I wasn't another cog there. I was the machine. Corinne, the VP of Strategy, gave me everything I needed: autonomy, support, and most importantly, trust. I wasn't brought in to advise or observe. I was there to lead, and I knew exactly where to begin. While Ashley was still doing creative brainstorms by reposting TikToks and calling it inspiration, I was rebuilding, from scratch, the architecture, the framework, the funnel designs. Every single asset they'd laughed off as too technical was now the foundation of Mercer Puislane's upcoming relaunch. And their clients? They noticed. By week 2, I'd taken over a skincare account Heston & Moore used to manage. The one Ashley had claimed she could totally rebrand with some mood boards and a catchy slogan. Their CMO reached out to me, not her. "We were confused about the transition," she said. "Honestly, we weren't even told you left. We assumed you were still running things." I just smiled and told her the truth. I'm not with them anymore, but I am still building. That was all it took. She followed me. The next week, a fintech brand I'd nurtured from seed round to Series B sent me a quiet email. "We're not impressed with the new team. Can we move our assets with you?" Of course they could. Legally, everything Heston & Moore had been using, campaign structures, content libraries, behavioral targeting tools, were mine. Not because I'd stolen them, but because I built them off-platform, licensed through an LLC I created years ago when I first noticed Richard's habit of undercutting women he couldn't control. Every headline campaign they launched had my watermark. Not a literal one, smarter. Lines of embedded metadata, unique routing scripts, platform keys connected to cloud storage I owned and paid for. So when I left, I didn't just leave a job. I took the keys. And slowly, methodically, I began turning the locks. The skincare campaign disappeared first, midstream, mid-rotation. The landing page stopped loading. The referral links broke. Their Facebook ads began failing review checks because they were pulling outdated scripts from an asset database they no longer had access to. Ashley called it a weird outage. I'd blamed the CMS. Richard told the client it was a temporary migration issue. They had no idea. The CRM system they used? Gone dark. The custom content planner I'd built inside Notion? Vanished. Reverted to a blank template when my admin privileges expired. And the best part? They couldn't say a word. Because none of them even knew where the original files lived. While Richard drafted a panicked memo about tightening operational protocols, I was finalizing a proposal for Mercer Puislane to take over their top 3 accounts, offering better pricing, deeper personalization, and full creative ownership. And I knew they'd say yes. Because results speak louder than selfies. Still, the unraveling wasn't loud. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, embarrassing, and worst of all, untraceable. Ashley kept up appearances. She posted about pivoting and navigating digital disruption, while behind the scenes, the numbers were sinking like stones. And Richard? Still no call. Not even a text. Maybe he was too proud. Or maybe he still thought this was a fluke, that he could fix it with more buzzwords and Ashley's fake enthusiasm. He didn't understand yet that this wasn't a glitch. This was a consequence. They fired me and handed everything to a girl who didn't know what she'd been given. And now, they were watching it all disappear. Campaign by campaign, client by client, bite by bite. I hadn't said a single word, but they were hearing me loud and clear. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for the illusion to break. 3 weeks of Ashley's lipstick and light show campaigns. 3 weeks of childish slogans pasted over legacy clients' content. 3 weeks of pastel filters, glitter fonts, and captions that read like they were written by a teenager doing a group project 5 minutes before the deadline. And now? It was all coming apart, from the outside first. The first email came from a long-standing client, one I'd personally onboarded 2 years ago when they were barely out of pre-launch. I still remembered our first strategy session. Just me and their founder in a dingy co-working space, mapping out their identity on a whiteboard with a broken marker. That same founder now sat at the head of a $40 million skincare brand, and she was furious. Her email was short, precise, and full of restrained disappointment. What happened to the brand voice? It feels like a parody now. The tone is childish. The visuals look like an Etsy shop, and we're getting DMs from confused customers asking if we were hacked. Where's Miranda? Ashley didn't know what to say, so she didn't reply. She forwarded it to Richard with the subject line, "Thoughts?" 2 days later, a fintech client called during lunch. Ashley put them on speaker. "Hi," the voice said, clipped and cold. "Quick question. Who approved the phrase slay your savings goals in our campaign email this morning?" I nearly dropped my sandwich when I heard it. Ashley laughed nervously. "We're trying to be more conversational?" "We sell mortgage insurance," he snapped. "Not lip gloss." Click. Ashley shrugged. Some people just don't get it. But people did get it. That was the problem. They understood exactly what had happened. The strategy, the stability, the expertise. They were all gone. Replaced with emoji speak and empty buzzwords. More complaints poured in. "We used to feel like you were our voice. Now it's all fluff." We noticed the drop in quality the moment Miranda disappeared. The new style feels unserious. And most damning of all, are you outsourcing our campaigns to interns now? Interns. That one got Richard's attention. He called a meeting. There was no agenda, no optimism. Just tension and half-sipped coffee. "We need to address some client feedback," he said, tapping the table like he was trying to summon leadership out of thin air. "There's concern that our tone has shifted too far from our brand core." Ashley, dressed like a motivational speaker at a teen conference, perked up. "I think we just need to explain the vision better. People get nervous when you innovate." No one agreed. Silence clung to the room like static. Aaron from Data finally spoke. "I ran the numbers," he said. "Engagement is down across 7 of our top 10 accounts. CTR has halved. 2 of our clients have dropped out of their renewal cycles, and 1 flagged us to legal for breach of tone agreement in their brand contract." Ashley blinked. "There's a tone clause?" "There was," Aaron replied flatly. "Miranda wrote it." Richard coughed. "All right, let's stay constructive. These are just bumps." Bumps. That was his word for losing half their momentum and 3 flagship clients. Meanwhile, I was watching it all unfold from my sunlit corner office at Mercer Plus Lane. Corinne would pass me printed newsletters from our acquisition team marked confidential. Internal notes from companies debating a switch from Heston and Moore. More than once, the comment appeared, "Things have felt unstable since Miranda left." And I hadn't said a word. I didn't need to. While they fumbled with half-finished campaigns, I was rebuilding better ones, smarter, cleaner, future-proof. Clients didn't want sparkle. They wanted strategy. And they were starting to remember who used to deliver it. By week 4, 2 more clients quietly exited their contracts. One simply wrote, "We miss how it used to be." That stung more than they'd admit, because even though they pushed me out like I was deadweight, they were now haunted by the ghost of what I built. And Ashley? still posting behind the scenes clips of her vision board, still captioning things like, "Marketing is just storytelling with sass," while the metrics bled out in silence behind her. She hadn't noticed that the boat was sinking, but the clients had. And the board was starting to whisper. The sparkle was wearing off, and the fire she thought she inherited had walked out the door and taken the oxygen with it. I didn't see the moment we hit number one. I felt it. It was in the way people moved when I entered the room. Heads turning, conversations pausing. That extra second of eye contact, like everyone suddenly realized who they were standing next to. It was in the inbox that went from politely busy to unmanageably full. Brand directors, VPs, journalists, a few ghostwriters asking if I was open to a profile piece, a byline, a keynote slot. I ignored most of them because I was too busy doing what I'd always done, building. But this time, I was building in a place where my voice wasn't just heard, it was respected, amplified. Mercer plus Lane had always been a quiet powerhouse, competent, steady, under the radar. But with me on board, it became something else entirely. We weren't just playing the game anymore. We were changing the rules. The Harlow Beauty campaign was the tipping point, a clean, modern luxury brand that had lost relevance in the chaos of online noise. I'd given them back their authority with a whisper, not a shout. A soft rebrand. A flawless video rollout. Influencers chosen not for follower count, but for loyalty, nuance, and storytelling. Every line was deliberate. Every frame told a truth. The tagline? Come back to yourself. It wasn't trendy. It was timeless. And it worked. Triple engagement, double conversion, record-breaking retention. The numbers didn't just rise, they soared. Industry dashboards couldn't stop flashing us in bold. And then, the rankings came out. Number 1. Mercer plus Lane had taken the top spot in campaign performance, client satisfaction, creative innovation, and year-over-year growth. Heston and Moore? Number 6. A quiet fall from grace they weren't ready to admit. But Richard noticed. Of course he did. He would have seen the same front page I did. Mercer plus Lane's name plastered across the Strategist Quarterly with a headline that made my chest rise just a little higher. Vision, Precision, Miranda James. They used my full name. That was new, and I knew the second Richard saw it, because just 3 days later, Corinne called me into her office. She was standing by the window, phone still warm from a call she clearly hadn't enjoyed. "You'll never guess who just called," she said. I didn't need to. "Richard," she nodded. Sounded rattled, polite, but like he was trying not to sound like he was chewing glass. "What did he want?" She turned toward me, one brow raised. "He asked who was running our marketing. Said, and I quote, 'Your rollout for Harlow was one of the smartest damn things I've seen all year. Sharp, clean, human. Who's the mind behind that?'" My lips twitched. I didn't speak. "And?" I asked. Corinne smiled, all teeth. "I told him, that would be Miranda James. You may know her." There was a pause, she said. A sharp inhale on the other end. And then he laughed. That tight, bitter kind of laugh you make when the reality you thought you controlled suddenly turns its face to show you what you've lost. "She's with you?" he asked, barely masking the disbelief. Corinne told him yes, that I wasn't just with us. I was leading us. He didn't say much after that. Just a clipped thank you and a hollow "well done" before hanging up. But the message was clear. He knew. He knew exactly what he'd thrown away. He'd replaced a strategist with a slogan machine, an architect with a content intern in a power suit. And now he was watching the house I'd built, the one he gutted, being rebuilt on a better block, grander, stronger, and out of his reach. I didn't need revenge. This was better. Let him sit with it. Let him scroll through the praise, the campaign reviews, the awards already being whispered about. Let him refresh his dashboard and see client names vanish like ghosts. And let him know that the girl he once mocked in a meeting room, who he said needed more sparkle, was now the woman lighting up the entire industry. There's a moment in every career where you stop hustling and start soaring, where the late nights and the relentless second-guessing finally give way to something solid, earned respect, proven power, and quiet control. That's where I was now. I didn't need to fight for attention anymore. I had it. Every week, new clients came knocking. Not because I begged or pitched, because they'd seen what I could do, because they remembered the before, when their campaigns felt like they were going somewhere, and realized that feeling had left the second I did. Mercer plus Lane had gone from up-and-coming to industry leader in under a quarter. I was giving keynote talks, mentoring rising creatives, signing off on million-dollar rollouts before lunch, and spending my afternoons choosing which global brand I wanted to elevate next. But success doesn't always announce itself with applause. Sometimes it slips into your inbox like a whisper. It was a Tuesday when I saw the message. From Aaron, the quiet data guy from Heston and Moore, who used to stop by my desk with silent nods and unspoken alliances. The one who saw what was happening to me long before I did. His message was short. No subject line. Ashley's out. I stared at it for a moment. Not surprised. Just intrigued. A few hours later, the news hit LinkedIn like a tremor. After a period of transition, Ashley Halford has exited Heston and Moore. We thank her for her contributions and wish her the best in her future endeavors. No fanfare, no follow-up, just a neatly worded burial. I didn't laugh. I didn't screenshot it or send it around. I didn't even speak it aloud. Because this wasn't a surprise. It was an inevitability. The truth was, she'd never been ready. Not for the weight of real responsibility. Not for the pressure of strategy that couldn't be faked with filters. She thought marketing was about vibes and volume. But what she never understood was that true influence isn't loud. It's surgical. Clients had started to leave within weeks of my departure. The rest followed in steady waves. Her final campaign, a cartoonish mess that rebranded a sleek fintech service as a money mood movement, became a joke in client group chats. One client wrote to the agency directly. "We don't know who's in charge anymore, but it's clear the vision is gone." Another said simply, "We want Miranda back." Too late. By the time Heston and Moore fired her, they were already bleeding revenue, scraping through emergency pitches, and clinging to legacy accounts like lifeboats. They didn't bring in a senior strategist or creative lead. No, they brought in a 23-year-old graduate with zero field experience and a degree in digital trend culture. Cheap, quiet, disposable. Someone who wouldn't ask questions. It was panic disguised as a pivot. And everyone could see it. I got word through the grapevine that morale at the agency had cratered. The old guard was gone. The new hires didn't last long. Richard had retreated almost completely, barely showing up to meetings, quietly handing off presentations to junior staffers while he read performance reports that never seemed to turn around. He still hadn't called me, but I imagined him reading the trades, scanning campaign after campaign, stamped with my name, my tone, my strategy, and wondering what would have happened if he'd just kept his ego in check long enough to recognize value when it stood in front of him. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I had my team now, loyal, sharp, creative. I had the clients I wanted, the freedom I earned, and the kind of future that didn't involve being passed over for someone's niece with a ring light. Ashley was gone. The girl who replaced me had been replaced herself. And me. I wasn't a ghost. I was the storm they didn't know they were still living in. And the best part? I didn't have to destroy anything. I just had to leave and let the foundation they weakened collapse on its own.